So I like what I see when I'm looking at me when I'm walking past the mirror. Don't stress through the night at a time in my life. Ain't worried about if you feel it. Got my head on straight, I got my vibe right. I ain't gonna let you kill it. See, I won't change my life one night, just fine.
Hello and welcome to A Seat at the Table, and a special welcome to our guests in the audience. I'm Christine White.
And I'm Monica Pearson. Is a college education still necessary in today's world?
I'm Deneen Milner, and I agree with these parents.
And you're gonna give up Princeton because you wanna be a farmer.
What about your education, honey? Why can't you go to college and have a garden?
Do that.
Yeah.
Grow your own food, and then we don't have to pay for a meal plan.
Maybe I don't like the road I'm on. Maybe Princeton is your dream. I need to figure out what's mine, what I want.
Hello.
Well, you know, in today's world, with so many opportunities, I think most black parents go, you are going to college whether you want to go or not.
It's not an option.
It's not an option. Whereas I look at it two ways. It depends upon the child. When I look at what's happening today and what are the things that are needed, in many instances, they aren't things that require a college education. You can go to a vocational school and get you an associate degree and still make a very good living 2 years earlier and not have the college debt. I'm not saying don't go to college. I'm saying look at the child and see what that child is best at.
I mean, you can do a lot of things. You could get a scholarship and end up in the NBA. You could end up being a rap star. I work with tons of less than educated millionaires, but it's a risk. And I don't know if black people can afford that risk. I mean, it's not a risk that I'm willing to take with my child. You're going to college just because the opportunities that you will have after going to college are much more plentiful than the ones that you would have if you didn't go to college.
Not necessarily. Not
I
necessarily.
I'm not.
Because what's happening... Go ahead.
When my babies were in the womb, I was like, look, babies, we going to college, okay? And that's the way that my parents treated me. Now, neither of my parents went to college, and as a matter of fact, my father went to the 5th grade. And he was forced to drop out of school when his mother passed away. And so I've always had drilled into me, college is not an option. It's a fait accompli. You are going, period. Because I want you, and I think parents all kind of think in this kind of way, I want you to be better off than me.
You don't have to go. I'm not saying that there's no way that you can't be successful without going to college.
But for black children, particularly in this, you know, in this day and age where sometimes a bachelor's degree isn't even enough to get you through the door.
And that's
we're going to
the
tell our
other
kids
thing.
that they can't.
No, we're not saying they can't go. You're still not hearing what I'm saying. The child, what is the child's aptitude? If your child is really good at computers and wants to do coding and goes through a technical college, they can make $63,000 a year. So are we talking about supporting yourself, or are we talking about, I want you to have a college degree because you need to have it,
but why
and
not,
you graduate to unemployment
I agree,
because
but
you
listen,
can't get a job?
Why not have a kid who's good at coding go to get a bachelor's degree, learn coding in college, come out making $120,000 and know how to run his own business?
But why not do it for 2 years? Do it for 2 years, working a full-time job and still going to school to get your bachelor's.
Oh, but you know that
I did it.
You know that.
I did it.
But how often is it that a kid comes out of high school, gets a full-time job, and actually pays attention to college?
No. We're not
That
talking
doesn't
about
happen.
getting a full-time job out of high school.
Or
We're
even
talking about going to that 2-year school where the tuition is less than what it is in a four-year school.
My question
where
is,
the unemployment rate is much lesser than when you go to that 4-year school. And you can go back later and get it.
But how often does that happen?
That's the issue, because the question is, you can go to school and make $60,000 a year, but what are your options for advancement? And if you don't have those skills that you've learned in a 4-year institution, I mean, part of what college is learning to socialize, thinking, learning how to manage people, how to manage relationships, how to manage.
You're saying you can't get that in a 2-year school?
There's a social.
You can. I'm just saying the risk is, it's a lot of risk to take for a
there's
black
also-
child in
Right,
America.
but it's a lot of risk. Okay, let me give you a study that actually showed that, unfortunately, for those of us in the black community, even having a college degree does not guarantee, unless you have some family wealth or some second-degree money making, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make more money and be more successful.
Oh, it's not about making more money. It's about making sure that you have what you need on that piece of paper when you're sliding it in front of someone who's trying to keep that door closed for you.
So you're telling me the reason you go to college is to have a piece of paper to slide to someone to let you in the door.
Works for me.
But in the end, you've got to be able to pay your mortgage. You've got to be able to pay your light bill. And this breaks down to the question that I always ask. All work is good work as long as it's honest work. So I was told.
I come from a family with parents, again, who did not go to college. And my father is a hard worker. He's brilliant. He has trades like you would not believe. He can fix the boiler. He can fix your carburetor. He can do everything. And I appreciate that, and I love that about him. But he knew that his children needed to have more. And the way that I was socialized and the way that I socialize my own children is that you need to go and get that paper. As a black child who's about to go into this professional world where they'll see this before they see anything else, you need to have that paper to back you up.
But
and
see,
say,
I
I had
also
4
think-
years worth of the best education that I could get, and here are all of the different things that I can do. Not just this one thing that I honed in on. Here are all of the different things that I do. And I've created all of these different options for myself by going to this college.
But see, I also think those options are still available for people who don't necessarily go to college. I'm saying go where your heart tells you to go. And don't go to college to please somebody else. Because you see the number of college dropouts. 40% of the kids who go in drop out. I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college. I'm the second person to graduate from high school. I understand the importance for me. I could have not gotten into journalism without a degree. But the reality is, I started out working in a bank, which helped me get the job in the newspaper, that got me the job in television. And then I went back to school and finished up my degree.
Anything's possible, but I will say that millennials and the generations that are coming after them are very concerned about debt. But I do think that we should instill in our children that education and lifelong learning is important. And sort of this idea that you're going to go to a technical school and then you're going to make all these millions of dollars, or that you're going to go to a technical school and maybe you'll be happy with your career. Maybe you'll be able to move up in your career.
Maybe you can have your own business.
Maybe you can have your own business, but you also might need to go back.
Yes.
And so the idea that education is important, generally speaking, is something that we need to instill regardless of where our children decide to go.
Now, I
and
can
what
agree
makes
with
them
you on
happy
that. I
right
can agree with
now.
you on that.
Agreed, I guess. I guess. I can give you that.
I will say that Spelman, for me, was a turning point in my life. I would not be the person that I am if I had not attended Spelman, and specifically an HBCU. It was the first time in my life that I was just Christine.
So for those who do choose college, what's better? Historically black colleges and universities, or predominantly white institutions?
Well, many black students choose PWIs, but most people assume white students can't attend HBCUs. This Morehouse man proves that's not true.
For me, being the one or one of few was actually a very key part of why I wanted that experience. Because I just felt like that would be so transformative. At the end of the day, I was born a white male in America. I come from the most privileged class on the planet. Coming to this environment, I still held my tongue probably more than I would have if I was not a minority. It did kind of force me to be more of a listener at times.
So, of course, I experienced a PWI in graduate school, and I went to an HBCU at Spelman. Do you guys ever regret not having gone to an HBCU?
Well, I kind of created my own HBCU. You've got to remember, I graduated from high school in 1965, so that's very different from you. I went to the University of Louisville, where there were very few black students, so we kind of created, literally, we hung out together, we played bid whist in the student center. That's when I went into a black sorority because I wanted that feeling of family and togetherness. Then I went to the University of Georgia when I turned 65 to get my master's degree. And that's, I think, when I became even more aware of how important it was to maybe spend some time in an HBCU. And why do I say that? Because I saw many of the black students there doing what I did 50 years before, because they didn't really feel the togetherness and the family that they would get in an HBCU. And as much as I love Georgia, there's no band like FAMU's band.
Right.
What about you, Deneen?
Well, my mother wanted me to go to Spelman. And I was
She's
like,
a smart lady.
You want me to go to an all-girls school where there's no boys? Like, I didn't get my first kiss until I went to college. I was not going somewhere where there was nothing but girls. Not happening. But I didn't know, right? I didn't know. And plus, I got a scholarship that required me to go to a school in Long Island or Queens. And so I ended up at Hofstra University. It was not the best experience. It was almost, I want to say traumatic. I'm still kind of shaken by the things that I faced as a black woman on a predominantly white campus, where they would check your ID every time you came, at the ID of everybody in the car in order to get onto campus, or within the first half an hour of me being on campus, someone said the N-word in front of me and was kind of making fun of someone else and didn't realize I was in the room with a bunch of other white women. It was traumatic, not being able to take the classes that I wanted to take. I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. I ended up in print because they wouldn't let me get to the equipment, and it was traumatic for me. Hofstra University.
Which is why you're wearing your daughter's Yale
And this
shirt.
is why I'm wearing my daughter's shirt.
Because she will not have that experience.
She may have that experience. And that's the scary part. I wanted her to go to Spelman. I hopped into my mother's shoes. I know more about Spelman now. And I wanted her to go to Spelman. She got in. We just couldn't afford Spelman.
Yeah. There's a camaraderie among even people that I meet in the workplace now that went to HBCUs. I think we see the world differently. Now, one of the things that a lot of my friends said was, when I was deciding what school to go to, is that if you go to a HBCU, it's not the real world. The real world's not black, and you're not gonna know how to deal in the real world where everybody else is white, which there's some truth to that. I came out, I think, prepared for the real world. Right. Because when I walk into boardrooms now, I have black females who are PhDs in their profession, who are experts, who held me down, held my feet to the fire, but also believed in me. And so when I'm sitting across the table from someone who doesn't think that I am capable, I remember those women, and it's the greatest gift.
Well, I'm fully expecting that my baby's gonna get some opportunities at Yale. How about that?
I know she will, coming from your family.
We gotta take a quick break, but when we come back, post-secondary tips from an education expert who's worked with students at every level.
My high school counselor told me I wasn't smart enough to go to college. Not even being told go to community college, no, I was straight told to go to the military. They were one of the schools that gave me a chance.
I think I learned everything about myself and about my history and my past from going to HBCU, and I don't think I could have gotten that at a PWI.
I think that if you can succeed in that environment, then you can succeed in any environment.
I love my HBCU because we hold each other down. We are a big family.
I love my HBCU strictly because of the community.
I see none of my family members graduate from high school, and none of them went to college, so me being the first one to go to graduate from high school, I was like, well, I might as well go to college. And that's what made my decision. And plus my grandma, she was like, from the start, she was like, you're going to college no matter what. I'm from a predominantly black, well, I just say diverse high school and diverse area, and coming to Duluth, this is predominantly white, and I was just like, culture shock.
Welcome back to A Seat at the Table. We have pulled up a seat for Dr. Nina Gilbert. She's an education consultant with over 25 years of experience. Nina, thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
So we started out talking about, is college an absolute necessity?
Well, I think we have to consider what the end goal is for the student. So for some, going to college is primarily about gaining knowledge, right? And exploring opportunities and possible career paths. For others, it's about getting to know yourself and interacting and socializing with other folks. But what about those students who really want to learn how to do something, right? And so I think the question we have to ask, is college the only way in which we educate ourselves? Or are there other ways in which we can learn other than going to college?
But you would definitely agree that in today's time, you have to have more than a high school diploma.
Absolutely. I do believe that making sure that students have opportunities presented to them and having the option to go to college is non-negotiable, right? That every student should be prepared for college. Now, if you decide to do something else, then that is your decision. I think my concern as an educator has always been, like, who gets to decide? Who decides for that 6th grader that you will not take algebra in 7th grade, therefore you're not on track for college?
And that's the issue. You know, like, I definitely see that in the schools. I saw it with my daughters, and it seemed to me like it started even before 6th grade. That, you know, like by 3rd grade, they were tracking the kids, and if you weren't clear on what was happening, your kid was going to be left behind. I'm a firm believer, and I support, you know, doing like the career days so kids can see the myriad of things that are available to them. But if your parents are not paying attention to that tracking and what not being in the gifted course
AP
does for your ability to get into the gifted classes in middle school, which open the door for you to get into AP classes in high school, and why AP classes are important for class rankings, and why class rankings are important for scholarship opportunities and things of that nature, then you get left behind. And so I feel like almost like this conversation needs to start way back to what happens, like I said earlier, from the womb. What is it that you're putting in your mind as a parent, and what is it that you're putting in the mind of your child as a parent as they start their school journey from kindergarten on? And I don't feel like our kids are getting that conversation.
But I will say, as educators, I think we're guilty of lying to children. We tell our kids in elementary school, you can be anything you want. And we say that from grades K through 4, around 5th grade, you'll start to see career days, and we parade all of these professional guests in front of our kids. But by 6th grade, if students are not assigned to the right courses, if they don't have rigorous content presented to them, you cannot be or do anything because you won't be prepared. So to tell a 3rd grader that you can be a doctor one day, but you never allow that child to have an AP science class, you know, we've misled that student.
So what do parents need to do? How do we change this concept that Black children in some instances can't learn?
So we have to continue to have conversations like this one, right? So I do believe that our schools, as they're currently designed, we have a focus on achievement and not mastery, right? So it's all about grading. And did you finish the 100 problems on this assignment, rather than does this student have the understanding of this concept, and are they able to master something? So what we spend all of our time doing is evaluating students and not helping them to grow as intellectual, evolving humans. And so the way humans learn is not in 60-minute intervals. And when the bell rings, you get another 60 minutes of another subject or topic. And so we have to start thinking about, what are our kids' interests, what are their talents, what are their gifts, and shaping, I think, the school or educational experience around that.
But parents have to be held accountable, I think, too. And we have to think about, as parents, what our role is in providing opportunities and making sure that kids go to school. Just like the gentleman said on the break, that his grandmother said he was going to college no matter what. My grandmother did not know what classes I needed to take. She didn't know whether I was on the right track. but she knew that I was going to college no matter what. And if we stop saying that, particularly in Black households, I think that there's this tendency for us to just kind of get loose. Oh, well, you know, he might want to be an artist. He might want to go to technical school. He might want to, I mean, he might want to do a lot of things. He might play in the NFL, but he also might have a really hard time getting a job.
But you have to say, high school is not enough. I expect more from you. Right. And I think we agree on that. And what you're saying is you have to still look at the child's interests and everything.
So, and I agree with you. I agree with all of you. However, as an educator, what's important to me is that I focus on what I can control.
Right.
I cannot control what happens at home.
Right.
But when that child comes into a school building, what is my responsibility?
Well, you're a parent, so tell us about your experience.
Oh my God.
Tell us about your experience.
Our oldest son would have been, well, he is, but by the time he became a senior in high school, he would have been the third generation college student or attendee. His high school counselor, had not we intervened, would have had a different outcome for him. Right, so it was assumed.
Who are these high school counselors? I hear this so often.
There's some wonderful high school counselors out there,
ones,
but you know, we're talking about the role and the responsibility of a parent.
Right.
So I'm an educator. My mother's an educator. My son, we assume, is going to college after high school. But his counselor said, oh, he plays football. He hasn't done well in math. He can always go to a junior college. No.
See, this is why I'm not okay. I'm not okay with this sort of loosey-goosey, maybe we're going to go to college, maybe college isn't for everybody. I mean, I think that we just have to be careful when we say things like that, because it leads to sort of this leniency that allows our students to have expectations of the world that aren't necessarily there.
And college looks different now, right? So college is not just about going and having this experience for 4 more or 6 more years in this kind of sit and get type of format. You have online options. And so if going to college is about just getting the credential or having that in your pedigree, there are other ways to demonstrate that I have the ability to add value to a company and become an independent wage earner.
Well, let me ask you this real quick, because you mentioned it, you know, getting into the right school. I have to ask, isn't a college degree at a college? Yes, I know Yale is different and Spelman is different, but is an employer really going to go, oh, because you went to Yale, you're better than the person who graduated from Clark at
every single day, all the time.
Absolutely.
I mean, I know that people in HR positions separate the stacks. So you get it one look. If you go to a school that I recognize, you get them put in one stack. If you go to a school that I don't recognize, you get them put in another stack. So it does matter, but I think, and it's also about the relationships.
We can talk about the difference between HBCUs and PWIs and whether you should go to school or whether you shouldn't go to school all day, but the conversation starts with children, with you thinking about this before you even think about having babies. What is it that you need to say? What is it that you need to know? What is it that you need to do to make sure that your child is educated in a way that sort of fits in with your family philosophy? And I really do believe it's a family philosophy, where you want to go, based on your own experience, of course. And yes, you do have to think about what your child wants and needs as they get older, but this is not something that you think about when your kid is filling out college applications or going into 11th grade. You need to be thinking about this kindergarten.
I know that college is not the only option, but it is a viable strategy. It is a strategy that I think that we all really need to consider, particularly as Black people facing the obstacles that we face every day. And if we're not talking about going to college, if we're not talking about secondary education, if we're not talking about reaching that level of mastery to our children, then there may not be the impetus in them to reach that high. And so even if it's not for you to go to a 4-year institution, if it's not for you to go to an HBCU, God bless. But, you know, I want to have the option in front of you. I want to make sure that you know that you have the option and how to get there.
I guess my final thought is a real simple one. All work is good work as long as it's honest work. And go into something that makes you happy, that you every day can go and say, I love this job. I love this career. And If it's college, good. If it's post-secondary and vocational school or trade school, good. But be sure you get more than a high school diploma, because you need it in today's time. Well, this conversation could go on, but we are out of time. I would like to thank our guest, Dr. Nina Gilbert, for being here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Share your thoughts with us on social media.
We're on Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, and Pinterest at ASATTTV.
Thanks for joining us for A Seat at the Table. And in the words of Shirley Chisholm, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair.
Somebody told you you can't do nothing. But it's all up to you. You can be whatever you want. A doctor, a lawyer, a physician, a nurse. You know what I mean? Yeah. The world is yours. Hold on to your dreams till they come true. Don't let them tell you what you can or can't do. I know it's hard trying to make it on your own too. Surviving at the same time going to school and trying to pay tuition by washing dishes. It's all a part of being self-sufficient. Look for a shooting star and you keep on wishing. Who's to say 5 years from now when you'll end up CEO of your own business?